Welcome everyone to Grape Finance's weekly AMA. With me is LB. Welcome, LB.
Hey guys, how you going? Thanks for listening in.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. And my name is Nikki. I guess you all know me. And I'm your host today, just as usual. We don't have an awful lot of questions, but as we know, that doesn't really matter. It never does.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and of course some questions are more pressing than others. But maybe first, LB, do you have anything to say or announce before we start the main question line?
I just mentioned maybe this like a recap, I guess, a little short recap. We launched the new rare tool, the floor corker, antique floor corker for that matter. And it went minted out very quick. I wasn't expecting it to be that quick, to be honest. Obviously the supply is very low, so it's, I guess makes sense in that regard, but it's very quick to the point where I will be increasing the supply of that tool. It's still going to be very limited compared to the other tools, but we will increase it to probably 200 total. So it's another 170, 125.
Oh, wow.
And we're probably going to as well offer a lot of those up through like competitions and lotteries, because we have a lottery coming as well, which is going to be usually for X-Grape, but we'll chuck this in as part of the reward. And also I want to trial an auction based essentially an auction for those tools as well. So for future mints, essentially. Because
Who's going to auction them? Are we going to auction them,
we will
or?
auction them. So I'm going to pre-mint and then auction a few of them off. Because the issue with the contract is that it's this contract is not upgradable. It's the tool contract is limited to it has a transaction limit of 10 maximum per mint, but that cannot be changed. It's hard coded in there. So it's, in other words, if you we can't limit any sort of per user base from the contract directly. So in other words, another way we can do it is like essentially we mint and then we offered them elsewhere to kind of spread them around. But we'll increase the supply as well, as I mentioned, and so that will, and then obviously new tools will come out as well in the coming essentially coming weeks as well. Several new tools, but for this tool we'll increase the supply a little bit before doing so, and then also trial things like like an auction and some lotteries and whatnot as kind of like a new distribution mechanism rather than just the mint directly.
Yeah, and I get from the way you're the way you're saying it, that the main reason to auction it off is to make sure that not some people are hogging all of the mints or something like the a few wallets having all of the NFTs, because that's what you're saying, right? They can mint up to 10, and you can't change that.
Yeah, essentially it's spreading it around. Obviously, if you have enough money, you can buy all the you can buy them all. You know what I mean? And even with an auction, you can technically buy them all. You can, even if we limit it per wallet, you can technically just buy them on 10 different wallets if you wanted to.
Yeah, but it's just a little bit more fair because
it's
if
just
some people really want one, then they can go and work for one. That's kind of the thing.
Essentially, rather than it being a race to mint, it's a it's an auction base. So, you can pay the price that you feel is fair for them, and it's not really like a time thing. It's more of a you buy it if you want to buy it. So it's a different way to distribute them that we're going to trial.
Right, that's pretty cool. And do you have any numbers on us for how many grape was burned?
Oh yeah. So I haven't done the raisin in the last 2 days, but obviously, if with the mint, there was quite a lot of grape from that. So I split probably 16,000 grape this week into the burner, and that's obviously still me keeping LP as well that I haven't split. So 16,000 actually burnt from the burning contract.
Pretty cool. Good stuff. All right.
Yeah.
I think then we should move on to the questions, right?
Yeah.
And there's one question, of course, I'm gonna put in front of all the others, and Peter Flea is the first to mention it. And the
Peter
question
Flea.
is, when Vinium?
Yes. Well, I was gonna also talk about this in the beginning as well, but I have been using it on mainnet through
Right.
localhost in the last sort of few days. So it's essentially good to go, which means that I'm gonna just push a couple final, the contract integration to the main UI, which will then build on the actual domain, and then I'm gonna open it up probably Tuesday for the OGs, and then
Right.
they will test whatnot, use it. It is live, so be. I'll mention this when we get there, but be obviously cautious that be respectful and cautious with the platform, considering that it's a beta, even though it is audited and it is essentially should be as secure as possible. But essentially we want to run it so that we can get good feedback. More on the UI and the UX as well. The UI and the UX is essentially an initial version that's just essentially based off the Aave V2 UI, which we're going to update over time and add new UX features on there, new sort of helper additions to the UI, so you can use like stats and things like that. So the initial UI is essentially just like a placeholder almost, you could say. But yeah, that
Right.
is Tuesday is when I'm likely going to open that up for OGs.
I'm really looking forward to that. And just to put it all in a few sentences. So it's been tested a lot of times. It's been audited. The audit has returned some things that have been improved, and then it's been tested again, and now it's live, and it should all work well enough. But you're still like, okay, be a little bit careful, because if multiple people are going to use it, some things might come up that we haven't foreseen yet. So that's why you put it up to the OGs first, and then listen to their feedback, and then open it up to the general populace.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's actually really nice, because it means you're really careful. Even though you have the confidence that it will be good, you're still careful in deploying it, which I think is a good thing. I
We
wish more
definitely want to
people
be
did that.
careful, especially with this, especially with pricing feeds of sort of lesser liquid assets. There may be a way, like I'm because obviously in the last sort of few weeks, especially, like it's not uncommon, but in the last few weeks especially, there's been a few attacks, vulnerabilities on lower liquidity pairs used as collateral essentially, and also borrowing. which then can lead to debt being in the protocol, and that's something that obviously we want to avoid completely. So I'm we're using a hardened oracle for essentially our token, but there's possibly some ways that I want to increase sort of the redundancy of it, so that any sort of outlier case as well can be not cause any issues. Essentially, is what I'm saying. And there may be a path that we move to where we offer essentially what was part of the plan anyway, but we put lower liquidity pairs with like say less than $1 million in liquidity into essentially their own pool, separated
Right.
from sort of like the pool with the bigger coins like Bitcoin and AVAX, for instance, or GLP, for instance. It's like $300 million of liquidity there. That's that's very safe.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
is it a bit like the like Ave's isolated pools? Like they have some of those tokens that you can only borrow them against their own tokens,
where
or would it be a bit different?
where was that? Would you say that?
Well, on Aave, if you look, certain
Aave,
tokens
yeah.
are seen as isolated. For example, USDT, I think, or your J Euro, or and other tokens as well. And they're considered. You cannot borrow other tokens against them. You can only borrow its own token against it. I don't know why you would do that, but you can do that. And so I was wondering, is it going to be like that, or is it its own pool where the more risky assets are going to be lended and borrowed?
Yeah, it will probably be more like its own pool, essentially like
Oh,
almost like Sol Lend on Solana. They have
okay.
a core pool, and then they have sort of pools for different apps as well, and then they also have permissionless pools as well, which is pretty cool. It's something also we want to do, and it gives the flexibility to have lower liquidity assets. Which whenever you have low liquidity on an asset, you're exposing yourself to price manipulation and also liquidation risks. So there's risk on both sides there. So obviously you want to mitigate that as much as possible, and a good way to do that is isolating pools around that, so people in those pools know the risks essentially of those pools. But then obviously you have your oracles and whatnot that are have fallbacks and redundancy built in, and as well you also run for liquidations. You kind of run essentially also run lower LTVs, but you run your own liquidations as well for those kind of like lower liquidity assets that
Yeah.
liquidators may actually not even want to liquidate.
Right. And why is that? Why may they not want to liquidate? I mean,
Well, I mean, if the incentive isn't big enough, if they can't kind
right,
of like
that way.
flash loan it, if it's not as easy to sell,
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
possibilities like that.
I get it. I get it. All right, that's actually it's really cool. It sounds really well thought through, which I would have already trusted you on, but and Nick as well, by the way. But it actually is, and I love that. It's great, and I also think it's really bullish thing. Like as soon as we can borrow against our grape assets and against our ex-grape assets, our wine assets, and whatever we can borrow against, I reckon it's not going to be grape single. But I think that's just such a bullish thing because we've been waiting for it for so long, and now that actually means that we can, use another option except for selling when we want to make profit from our grape and wine and X grape and whatever assets, and just really a beautiful thing. I really like it. I really love it, and really looking forward to it. So Tuesday, all excited, all happy, and I think many people with me. Um, okay, let's move on to the rest of the questions, which are more general, I suppose. Um, right. First is the Danny. Hey team, how's it going? I missed asking this in the previous AMA, but I was able to hear the recording. Haven't we had this one? Wait. And for today's question, oh, I went way too far back. I'm sorry. Um, I think we are here when need tools, right? I'm sorry, I messed up. This one here, the first is Need Grape, who says, why did you choose to make the press contracts open source rather than keeping them closed to offer as a service?
Yeah, I mean that that's kind of we could do that, but I guess there's a few reasons. I mean, one reason is kind of we sort of made it in conjunction, in collaboration with another development team. So in other words, it was always intended as an MIT license, as an open source license, and as well, it's kind of that's also kind of like EMP's model, which I very much respect AJ and the EMP team. I don't want to kind of like compete with them on offering a service that they offer, paid. In other words, rather we would just we've just essentially made an open source pool that takes inspiration from them and takes inspiration from other pools as well. I think
It's
the
kind of an
ethos.
ethical aspect as well, right? Yeah, it's
A
an ethical aspect.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, as well, I think the ethos of crypto and DeFi is kind of open source, or at least um, open code base, so that it can be verified on chain. I do prefer. I would prefer using apps that are not a black box. In other words, I can actually see the code and I can verify that it is what it is, like what it actually is supposed to do.
Mhm.
Because obviously, if some code is black box, it's kind of like, well, we don't know how it works. We don't know what it does. We don't know any sort of backdoors in here. We don't know any vulnerabilities that we don't know that the actual developers may not know either, because a lot of the things and it comes back to like encryption in general. If you're going to use encryption, you're going to use open source encryption. If you if you are using closed source encryption, you're putting a lot of trust in the person that developed that to not have a backdoor, first of all, but then also for the thing to be secure. And one of the ways things become secure, especially in encryption, is that they're open source, so that anyone can verify it, and
Yeah.
that helps with the essentially limiting vulnerabilities, because you have a lot of eyes on it.
Yeah.
And
Very
as
much
well,
so. I mean,
yeah.
let's not forget that Grim Finance had a closed had their code not open, and it was all a black box, and then 30 million was hacked, right? And we still
Mm,
don't know whether that was a true hack or an inside job, simply because the code was not verifiable. Nobody could see. So
hmm.
it's all just based on trust. And then when things go wrong, you're like, okay, uh, might have been an honest mistake, might have not been, and you just know nothing. So the whole thing about DeFi, I think, is that if you can do it, then just do it, but don't hawk your code that way. I mean, just stay innovative, and that's also why it's so much community based, right? The community just stays with the good developers that keep being innovative, or innovative. I don't know how you say that.
Yeah,
Innovative.
no, that was
Um,
right. No.
and and that's far more valuable than trying to hog a certain amount of code and try to sell it to other devs in that way, because that's kind of leeching off of other projects instead of providing value. And I think that really good projects always try to provide value as much as possible.
I think you made a
That's
good
my
point about Grim
personal
there
opinion.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no,
Mm.
definitely. And as well, I think you have the issue. I think we've kind of seen this with Horde a little bit with the LMS. That they sold it to, they licensed it to a few protocols, but obviously you have a lot of other protocols that like the idea but didn't like the licensing, and so they just made it
Mm-hmm.
themselves anyway. Like
Yeah.
like Spring Game, whatever. They just made PriceSpot or whatever.
Another LMS.
Optimus,
Yeah.
they just made sort of like a grid bot, whatever. So
Yeah.
it's hard to do. It's essentially going to be competing against that as well.
The
Which, in
thing
other
is,
words, yeah.
if you're a good coder, you can basically create anything that you have the idea for. Just all it takes is time, right?
hmm
And the whole idea about DeFi, I feel, is that it's sort of these are all experiments, and I know that people hate people using that word. I'm very sorry that I'm using it, but they are experiments in a good sense, and that doesn't mean that they are unsafe or whatever, but they are tryouts. Like, this is a
hmm
financial system that we can try, and that is a financial system that we can try, and we try all kinds of financial systems to hope to get to a few that are really, really good, and then
hmm
probably capitalize on those. And those are the ones that survive, and those are the ones that are good. And those projects will do great. And I think that as soon as you start closing off your code, you're no longer helping that evolution along. You're just trying to stifle it a little and try and make money off of that. Yeah, well, I just think that that is more TradFi, that is more centralized again, and it's actually a step back. That's maybe my idealistic point of view, but I
hmm
do feel that there's a certain truth to it, though.
Yeah. It's a very much collaborative environment, and a lot
Yeah,
of protocols have sprung up just from building off another base protocol's code base, and innovating on top of it, and then making a whole new product from it. So you know, a lot of things can come from it.
yeah. But obviously, it's a choice, and there's nothing inherently wrong with being happy with the code you wrote and trying to license it and trying to get some money out of it. I'm not saying that's wrong in any way. I mean, it's a way to make money, and of course, it's your skill set, and you don't want to do stuff for free. But there's depends on your ideals, I guess.
hmm
Um, all right. A finon, a finon. I don't know. Need knowledge. Need knowledge is cool. After having a cool chat in the general chat, we have some interesting questions. One, is compounding in Sodapress/Solera extending assassination as in wine press? If so, the brewmaster not lowering my ROI percentage after compounding is a bug. So either is it
yeah,
extending assassinations or is there a
it
bug?
is. Yeah, it is. It works the same as the wine press. You just get the extra. It just speeds up your claim per second as well in the soda press and the Solera. So yeah, I think I'm not sure about that bug. I don't know. Would have
Right.
to double check that.
So contact LB about the bug and he can double check it, right?
I think.
That would be the
I mean,
message.
brew. I mean, I haven't used the Brewmaster. I mean, I have used the Brewmaster. I haven't. I haven't developed it. You'll have to speak to Crypto Neo. I think. I need to check that code base, is what I'm saying. But you should talk to Kryptonia about it anyway. He's very knowledgeable about the presses too, and I think as well, Fizzle just came out with a pretty cool press mechanics docs page. He's a lot of help from I think Deja Vu with that. So thanks for the helping with that as well. And check out the presses page in the docs for like press mechanics behind the scenes, in other words.
Okay. That's always a good thing to do, and I really love Fizzle's work on that usually.
Yeah.
So people go there and check it out. All right, then we move on to question number 2, which is when one compounds, does that add to the total claimable? Because assassination threshold is calculated from 3.5 times deposit plus compounds, or 3.5 times deposit plus compounds, or 3.5 does deposit plus I times compound for some scaling factor y. Y times compound. Well, read it and give an answer, please.
No, compounding does not increase your claimable amount. Compounding allows you to stay in the pool longer, which therefore does technically allow you to essentially claim more actual LP tokens, because the shares that you have increase in value over time. The longer that you're in the pool, the shares increase in value in terms of how much LP they can be redeemed for. But the compounding does not increase your claim just by itself.
I wonder if that's an answer, because they've got this, all of these. I think it definitely is an answer, but they've got all of these. Like which of the 3 is it, or is it?
I mean, it's none of them
option
really.
number D? It's none of them, right? Right.
It's deposits. Your deposits are what you earn on, essentially, and the compounds allow you to stay in the pool longer. In other words.
All right. Okay. Clarified. Then we move on to question number 3, which is, does wine press and soda press / Lara calculate it in the same way? Well, I guess.
Yeah, they all do. They all do compounding the same in terms of extending your ability to stay in the pool. And the soda press and Solera also increase the amount of shares that you're able to claim every day. So they essentially increase your claim per second on that. So in other words, it allows you to reach the point at which you're allowed to claim all your shares back much faster. But the idea with the press is obviously is to keep as many shares in the pool as possible. So that means holding off claiming for as long as possible, because your shares will continue to accrue value over that time in terms of how much LP tokens they can be redeemed for.
Cool. Then we move on to Chenkel's question. Chenkel / need X Grape, also in the need family. Firstly, thanks, Lord Barista. I hadn't heard that one yet. So, Lord Barista and the team of winemakers and coffee drinkers, we need to branch out, that's clear, to be developing at this space and maintaining our hearts warm, high APRs throughout the bear. Is that flash mint for winemakers still happening? The NFT trade is above 2 times the mint price. Could you please reopen it for a day or two? I think that's what you discussed right in the beginning, right? That you're gonna reopen it a little bit.
I think he's mentioning about the actual vintners themselves, and rather than the tools. I think what we I mean, I think we're below the actual mint price though. Is the thing. The mint price I think was 2.5 AVAX when AVAX was about $25, and I think 50 grape. This is like $40 in grape. So we're a little bit below. Like we're at $30 floor price, I think. So we're taking a little bit lower. But for the vintners there, I think there's still like 3,700 vintners to be minted from the contract. If people really do want us to open it up, we can. I just feel like there's still, a reasonable amount on the market. I mean, there's like 44 listed right now on NFT Trade. I'm not sure about other marketplaces. And they are still a little bit below the mint price. So I don't know if what I would like is for them to actually be like actual mint price or a little bit above, and then it kind of signifies that the demand is outpacing supply. We need to increase supply a little bit, but we can still open it up if people really want.
But it's also fair to wait a little bit for the people who actually want to sell their winemakers.
That's true.
Because otherwise you'd just be undercutting them, so to speak, with basically unlimited supply being the protocol. All right, so we're going to be a bit more fair than that, but maybe in the future. Cool. Could we see some new utility being added to the winery NFT? Well, I think it's that is the increase of the NFT then that you spoke about, right? Or do you mean actual new utility?
Which one? This, I think I was talking about the vintners now. The winery, like the older collection, the VIP collection of the wineries. I mean,
the winery collection,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So I think what obviously I mentioned last week that we're gonna airdrop the rest of that node pool out to them. So we're gonna do that pretty soon. Actually, over this week, and as well, we do a couple of little things here and there, like obviously you get sort of free spins in the casino now with the slots. It's free spins. I think some people are being confused that it's tickets. You get the spins on the slots rather than the tickets, and they reset every week. But as well, I'm looking for other things to do with the sort of what sort of benefits we can give. I think you mentioned here as well in this next sort of line that we can give a percentage of the prices to the NFTs for the airdrops. I mean, we can do that. There is not. So what I've done with the percentages on the presses is I've essentially the treasury is getting 0.5% from that. So it's really not like I've cut down. I've sacrificed the treasury's amount to give more bonus to the lottery, essentially. Because people are asking about the lottery, so I boosted the lottery and took that from the treasury allocation. If we were to give some to the NFTs, we would need to, either decrease the lottery and give it to the NFTs, or boost the deposit tax, essentially. Which I'm not sure if that would be the best thing to do. I'm not sure, but so in other words, 0.5% is really not much if you want it for the NFTs for airdrops. I mean, so I mean we could do it, but it's really not going to be that much. and we're going to have to take from the lottery. Something I can play around with those numbers though.
Yeah. It would also just be cool to include them in some future venture again.
Yeah,
But
of course.
it's a good question to think of. Yeah, we got these initial winery NFTs, and the promise always was and has been that they are going to be used in the future. And well, they have been used pretty well with the airdrops. I think that anyone who minted one has definitely got their ROI. Um, so it's not like people are at a loss in whatever way, but it's still nice to keep thinking of
Yeah,
them, I
we
think.
always want to,
So it's a good,
have
yeah,
some sort of extra use. Like they got a free mint on the vintners.
yeah,
We tie new things to them. Obviously, you'll be able to lend against them when that comes around. But as you said with the airdrops, like we gave out way too much with the airdrops, and I think it kind of made people expect too much. In terms of dollar value, I think we gave out $700,000 worth of grape and wine as it 4 airdrops, which
yeah.
is just actually insane, considering it was
Mhm.
within 2 to 3 months.
Those were
So
good months.
you think about the
They
ad
were
like
very
the
good months.
exactly. You think about the APR on that. I mean, that's like a stupid APR for an NFT.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so but so we need to make it a little bit more realistic.
Oh, that's what the bad market is for, right? Double check your ways of doing things, make them more realistic. Um, well, it's good. It's good that it's on your within your vision that you're gonna check it out on your scopes. I mean, all right. Um, Another question is, I believe they're losing their value due to the popularity of the presses and draining of nodes. Well, that's what we just discussed. Talking about nodes, any updates on MIM Grape migration? Any hope for Grape Walrus migrate to something new too?
Yeah, I'm working on that with the Great Mim,
Mhm.
to a press mechanic, maybe wrapped in uh, in X-Grape, for
Right.
like a dual yield almost, as like an extra bonus. But for Grape and Walrus, I'm also thinking whether we want to build liquidity in that pair, as it's kind of like a pair that has extra risks associated with it and comes with arbitrage between the protocols as well, which doesn't really benefit our protocols, either of us,
Mm.
depending on movements, either way on the market. Especially if there's a big sell or a big buy on either our tokens, they will be looped through that pair and kind of dampen the movement. In other words, or accelerate the movement the opposite way. So it's kind of something I want to do with the Great Walrus nodes is provide payment for those noders with the the good tokens from our protocols essentially. So X Grape and X Walrus as well, which you can both earn from pretty good yields on both. So something I'll probably do that with that.
Cool. Really cool. Yeah. All right. The last thing he wanted to say is Aleph Grape, which I think is always a good thing to say. All right. Needwen actually was the first one to mention Wenvinium this time. It wasn't Peter Flea, so I'm sorry, Needwen. It was you. But it has been answered. Tuesday, it's there for the OGs, and then we're gonna beta test. All right, Taz. Says, do we know why DBank isn't calculating the price of grape?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
noticed that.
I have no idea because nothing changed um, on our end, and
Yeah.
I don't know. We've already submitted. Someone already submitted something about that, and I don't know. They probably need some guidance because we tried to do with the X Grape price on their side, and I think they maybe stuffed something up with that when they were trying to do the X Grape price. I don't know. We need to kind of like actually talk to them rather than just like submit a form. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To actually guide them a bit, so it doesn't go over their head. All right, cool. Then we, sorry. Neat Grape is saying, what are the main tokens being used to mint raisin so far? Got any cool raisin stats from the week?
Yeah, well, I said earlier as well that we, probably burnt about 16,000 grapes just from that, especially from the mint with the tools, which is pretty cool. And I think, and that's not all of the grape either, because I'm keeping some of the LP. But mostly people are using X grape to mint, which makes sense because X grape is kind of the easiest one to get. In other words, you can essentially just swap grape for X grape using the LP, which has 200k liquidity, which is actually not bad because of the soda press. So that's kind of like the easiest way. You can just buy it straight up on Swapsicle. But then we also have the Swapsicle LP coming pretty close in second for that as well. And obviously a little bit of vintage meme, which is nice. And then Trader Joe meme is less used, but still a little bit.
Well, it sounds like a perfect answer to that question. Then we move on to Chenko, Need X Grape. Some loyal grapers miss the mint, and I do feel for them. So it's clearly not you then. I put together some questions I saw in the chat. Would the new tool coming be in the same tier 4? The new tool coming, would it be in the same tier 4? And would it be possible to limit the mint per wallet further to avoid all big wallets grabbing and trading it 1 to 3 per wallet maybe? Yeah, that was discussed right in the beginning of this AMA, right? That it's an unupgradable contract.
Yeah. So it would need to be, like I mentioned, we'll pre-mint and then we'll do, some auctions, some lotteries, things like that. And as well, we want to also say like 1 to 3 per wallet. Like 1 per wallet is kind of almost useless. You know what I mean? You have one. If you have like 150 vintners and you have one of this tool, it's just kind of like, well, doesn't really help you that much, to be honest. So in other words, like you'd expect people to actually want a few to balance out their strategy. In other words, so that's
Right.
like but that's why That's why we wouldn't put some kind of like limit per wallet, which I don't think we can even do really. Anyway, but or we may be able to do it in the winery contract actually. But beside the point, I think as I mentioned, we'll do some sort of auction for that, and we're going to increase the supply. In other words, and the new tool, I think I don't know if I can actually make a new tool as the same tier. So I think by tier it just means order of creation of the tool.
Usefulness. Yeah. How good it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And last but not least, could you briefly explain how Revest and NFTs work, and if they could, or how they could benefit the Grape ecosystem? Like, I don't even know what this is. Do you?
Yeah. There was a Revest. You should check them out. They're a pretty cool protocol dealing with essentially like financial based NFTs.
Right.
And they have different things, different goals. In other words, depending on the protocol that they're working with. But essentially, the main goal is to kind of reduce the price the protocol pays in emissions. So essentially, to reduce the emissions, but still incentivize LPs, still incentivize action within the protocol, but without having to pay as much in the form of incentives. And so with the grape one that we're going to be trialing with them, in other words,
Mhm.
Essentially what's going to happen is that LPs can deposit their LPs into the protocol, into the Revest protocol, and they get one of these NFTs, and essentially they do that and they get a upfront payout in wine. So they get a certain percentage in wine upfront for doing so, and then
Mhm.
their LPs are then staked and continue earning yield as they do, like normal. But then that yield goes to the treasury, and then at the end of that period, because it is a fixed maturity, I think it's going to start off as a 1 month maturity, so it's pretty short maturity.
Mhm.
And then at the end of that, the LP gets their LP back. So you don't lose any tokens for doing so.
Mhm.
You essentially just get an upfront payment, and in the meantime, the DAO earns POL on that essentially. So the benefit is the DAO gets POL, and you don't lose any principal because you get the principal back, and you get an upfront payment in
Right.
wine. So it's a cool little experiment to kind of decrease the amount of wine emissions, in other words, because it will be going to the protocol, and also or the wine emissions that we pay out, and also at the same time increase POL for us, but still offer yields while doing so, incentivize LPs at the same time.
Pretty cool. Yeah, I've been while you were talking, I've been looking at the site. I don't think I understand it that quickly, but I'm definitely gonna give it a look. So it's revest.finance for people who want to check it out.
And they have a lot of
Okay.
different uh, different ways they can do it, essentially depending on your protocol. They worked with a lot of they're pretty new, like they've only just launched
Mhm.
kind of, but they've already worked with some pretty big protocols, um, like Curve, like GMX, like Olympus, so they Spooky, I think, as well, or what's it called?
Yep.
Yeah, the other one there. But you know what I mean. They're they're pretty cool. So we'll try it out.
Nice. Right. Looking forward to that. Then we move on to wait, where are we? Oh yeah, GS. Can we expect Finium to be released this coming week? Yes. What would be the approximate APRs for wine staked on the boardroom once Finium goes live?
Um, that's a very hard question to answer right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to be obviously based on the
On the
amount
use.
of the actual use, like the actual borrow, and then I can see there's about $211,000 staked in the winery right now. So I mean, don't expect 1% a day. Don't expect some
Yeah.
sort of degen return, because it would be a return in essentially blue chip tokens, is what it's going to be a return
Yeah.
in. So that's the trade off for not getting 1% a day, because it's an actual
Yeah.
blue chip
And
that you're getting.
will it be claimable through the winery or will it be airdropped? How is it going to work?
Yes, initially we'll do likely an airdrop, and then I'll make a newer contract, I believe, with probably some other mechanism. There's a few ways I'm thinking about doing it, and I'm not entirely sure the exact way I'll do it just yet. There's trade-offs to each, it is with anything really. So I'm just trying to kind of brainstorm that. But initially, it'll just be in the winery, and you'll get airdrops until we make a specific contract that can also do the bots revenue distribution as well, and keep track of all that at the same time. And there'll probably be some one way we can boost it. Obviously, is very popular, is to do a tax on a sort of withdrawal post without, say we have a vesting and then you withdraw before the vesting's over, then there'll be some tax, and then that tax is distributed to the rest of the stakers. That's a way to essentially boost APRs quite high even, but obviously you're getting it in a you'd be getting it in wine token, which for the other stakers that are still in the pool is probably good. But that's something I'm also looking at doing. So to kind of boost the APRs,
Well,
yeah.
all right. Then we'll see what it's going to be. And yeah, well, as I said, I can't say enough that I'm looking forward to it. It's just really happy about it. Anyway, Saint is asking, any tweaks made to raisin and or costs to recharge versus resting to make it more equal?
Yeah. We've been looking at this, and I'll probably do this. Just finalizing some, essentially the actual calculation on that, and then we'll do that this week because I want to make it so that it is kind of it makes sense to actually use raisin for the recharge rather than unstake restake, which can be a bit of a pain. And then with a zapper as well for raisin to kind of just zap straight in and then recharge at the same time in the one transaction would be nice.
Right. Then Needwen, he's a bit scared, it seems. EMP said the next detonator as a service project is on Avalanche. Is it us?
It's I don't know. It's not us. I believe I think Walrus is also in the pipeline for that, and I think Champion as well. So
Right.
yeah,
So Walrus might be
either
detonated.
of those two. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Need Grape also ask, are you a one-man Vinium team, or is there a team you're working with in order to develop, maintain, market, keep ahead of exploits and vulnerabilities, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, it's of course, it's not a one-man team. It's Grape's not a one-man team.
Exactly.
Essentially, the Vinium team is essentially the Grape team, and also have one other contract dev as well that's been sort of kind of working on that mostly, which will continue for a little while, and then we'll also we also outsource some modules to another dev team as well when applicable, in other words. So as always, it's not a one-man team.
It doesn't really sound like it. Like maybe you started on your own with Grape Finance and then quickly realized
Yeah.
that that was not the way to go. And since then, you've not worked alone. So yeah, of
Yeah.
course, Finium is the same. All right. Secomano, all right, they are actually late, but all right, I'll do it. So what's the way to increase the amount claimable in SodaPress, harvest, and then re-put in SodaPress gains?
You can do that, but I probably wouldn't do that because then you're essentially decreasing your shares that you have right now in the pool, and then you're also getting the claim fee. So essentially the best way to increase your account amount claimable in the soda press is to not claim, to actually keep your shares in the pool. Yeah, so essentially the longer that you're in the pool with all of your shares, the higher the value those shares get as over time. Over time they get more valuable through every new deposit from everyone, every new claim from everyone. There's more value. You're able to claim more LP tokens for each one share, in other words. So the idea really is kind of like a game, in other words, competing with everyone else for the most to stay in the pool the longest, essentially, and to stay. Compounding allows you to stay in the pool, essentially over time for essentially indefinitely if you compound, and then claiming reduces your shares. So in other words, you probably want, if you want the most value, you probably want to not claim and let those shares accumulate value. But obviously, you take profits. That's the thing, So that's when you claim. But in other words, you want to do it only when you need to do it, because then you can get more value for those claims when you do claim.
Very clear. Thank you for answering that. All right. We go to the AMA live chat, where we start with a few funny things that people can read for themselves, especially Rainbow Neat Goon, who is very bullish and also feels that the bear market doesn't really matter. He's got some nice memes on that, but he also asks like, how many calories in a cat? Just
Depends on the size of the cat.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. All right, moving on. Dirko is saying, invite your friends to this AMA, fellow grapes. Yeah, please do. Chilio is doing a shout out to Celestial, built off the bones of Tomb, but definitely not a Tomb full.
Nice.
I gotta second that. I'm just gonna put the link down there. All right. Rainbow Neat Goon says compounds on Solera and Soda Press also give you tickets for the lottery.
That's true.
That's good. That's true and good to know for everyone. All right, Sakamano. Yeah, well, I've already done your question, even though you put it in the wrong place. It's good. Saint, whoa, what's your thoughts on the recent action in the crypto world? Doge pumping with Elon buying Twitter. BTC over 20k. ETH over 1500 currently. I know LHB is unlocking their nodes soon. Lame hillbilly. We should probably just nuke those or do what you said. X-Grape Wars. Right, there's a lot in that.
Yeah, I mean, crypto world, obviously you need some rallies. We're heading into the midterm elections. Usually when there's ever sort of elections in the US, at least, there's market rallies. Just because it looks good. It looks good on the current
that's
party,
the thing, right? That's the thing. They're gonna promise not to improve, not to rate high, not to hike the rates
yeah.
so much, so that people feel that they will have more money to spend again, because most of the U.S. has a lot of debt, because that's the way their economy works apparently. So yeah, that there's going to be promises of getting a cheaper dollar, and that obviously is going to rally the market somewhat. My personal view is that it's just a relief rally, and you might make some money over that trading it. I don't think that this is the pivot. That's my personal view. Like it's not going to be the pivot. I do feel it's still a good idea to stay in stablecoin derivatives like Grape. But I wouldn't say I personally wouldn't jump into BTC just yet, or ETH or whatever. But it's just me.
That's fair. I mean, we've had a couple rallies. Like we had a rally in September, I guess, like in August as well, that went higher than this. And you have rallies all the time in bear markets. Still, technically, the macro picture is still pretty bleak. Like very high inflation. So either the Fed and central banks around the world are either going to have to just they're in a position where they really do you want to save the market? Do you want to start printing again, or do you want to save your dollar and cut the rates so that increase the rates so that inflation is in check? So that's kind of the position that essentially all central banks are in right now. So
yeah, and I think it's also for the Fed or actually for the US as a whole, it might be a lot more beneficial to jump on the dollar a bit more to actually make it more expensive to borrow it because, for example, Germany. To keep their economy going, actually, because they need a lot of energy.
Mm.
They are probably just gonna print a lot of euros basically to buy dollars for it or borrow dollars. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they need to go and buy a lot of energy. Even though Europe now has full supplies of liquid nitrogen or liquid gas. I mean, that doesn't really mean that we can, take a full winter of production as well.
Mm.
I mean, it probably will keep our households going, for which I'm very happy because I don't like to freeze. But it doesn't matter that Europe is out of the woods, right?
Yeah.
And if Europe is not out of the woods, that means that Europe is probably gonna, not gonna do so well versus the dollar as well, and that means that it would be good for the dollar to make it expensive to borrow it. um, so there's really no strategic incentive, or not that much of a strategic incentive for the Fed to pivot. I think that's just my personal
Mhm,
opinion, but
mhm.
that's what I think. So I simply think that it's gonna, increase over time the uh, the Fed rates, like the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
borrowing rates. And eventually they're gonna pivot. They must, but it's gonna take a while, I think.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's you know, it's still technically a bear market. We're still technically in a technical recession.
Mm.
Um and you know, meme coins will run hard. Never, meme coins are just like their own market. They don't make sense because
No,
a
they
lot of
don't.
retail buys them, which means they don't look at the market cap or anything like that. They'll just buy them, and
Mm.
so they'll go much higher than you think.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it also makes no real sense. Like Elon has bought Twitter, and therefore Dogecoin pumps. Like it's just people see a lot of Elon because he does cool stuff. He walks into Twitter office with a sink, right, and does interesting stuff and that's fun. He knows how to capture attention, but that doesn't really mean that Doge is suddenly valuable or something. It's just that people think it is, and essentially that means it is. But I'm not sure how safe that is or how lasting. Um, but if you want to go for meme coins, then go for it. There's nothing against it. It's just a different market, I say. Um, okay. Did we already talk about Vinium? No. Yes, we did. Um, Wait, Dirko asks, can we accumulate the tickets dropped into the casino and claim them above 100? It's too tempting to keep spinning.
No, the spins reset every week on Sunday, I believe. So you'll need to use the spins during the week to but you can just set it on an auto, use your free spins. You don't have to buy any more spins if you don't want. But
Hmm. Just enter the casino once a week, use your free spins, and see how many tickets you get. I just did it, and I got 38 tickets from my free
nice.
spins, so I'm happy. Yay, I won something. Uh, um, so, all right, moving on. And yeah, it's too tempting to keep spinning. That might be true. That means it works. That's good. All right. DBank changed when they updated the V2 notes, I think. We definitely need to just meet with them. Is
Mm,
that easy? I'm not sure if that's easy
yeah, I
to
don't know. I
reach
probably
them.
need to get into their Discord or something like that
Right.
to get in
Actually
touch
talk
with
to them.
someone. Yeah.
Sounds exhausting. All right. Yeah, Chenko says, love the idea, X-Ray Walrus. Is that gonna be a thing?
Oh, not as an LP. But I mean, I guess what I was saying there would be more like, we end the node, but then give, with the grape side we give X grape, and then with the walrus side we give X walrus, so that you can earn on both sides in both protocols.
Okay. Right. Chilio wants to make clear that the shout out was said in the context of live talks about being open source and innovating on top, and it wasn't just a shameless plug. Yeah, of course.
On the
That
bones of Tomb.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
bones of Tomb. But it's true though, and I second that. And Chilio is just also a really good dev. So
Yeah.
the obviously has the same but the same way of going about things. Just be innovative and just instead of trying to hog your code, because if you're good enough, you're going to make new code anyway, or just make it really well.
Yeah, you have to
And
make a good
that's
product.
yeah, and forks will always just be forks, right? Some people think that works. That's fine. They're usually short-lived. You have to have a dev that actually can do something new on top of a fork, or change a fork a bit. Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Saint explains something. Chenko says it's possible to move Grape Walrus to press with X Grape X Walrus wrapped, so there is no impermanent loss and no trading. Arb on the pair would be Grape. All right, wait. Let's see what it actually means. Like, is it possible to move Grape Walrus to a press with X Grape X Walrus wrapped? So first we're gonna, make a liquidity pool out of X Grape and X Walrus, and then wrap that, and
I mean, there
then
would
that's gonna
be.
be in a press, right?
I mean, there would be IL. Like anytime you have an LP, there is IL, no matter what, unless it is stable coins. They don't lose their peg. And then, I mean, there would be trading too because it is an LP. But there probably wouldn't be less ARB. Is a good point there, because that's kind of something I don't like about the Grape the Grape Walrus pair, is that there is negative ARB between the protocols, essentially, which don't help either of us, in other words. So that's kind of the issue there.
All right. So there's gonna be some changes, and it might be this one. Is that a good answer?
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Yeah, and then Chili also seconds that, like always impermanent loss unless both go up at the same rate. Yeah, that's how impermanent loss
or down.
works. Or down, yeah. So it's good for people to know that impermanent loss can actually help you when your main asset goes down, because it will go down less, at least in your own pool. But if it goes up, it will go up less for you. Yeah, that's just the way things go. So it's not necessarily bad. Impermanent loss might actually be beneficial sometimes, but it's always there. Sacomano, I don't know what language it should be, but it seems a bit Italian or something. But if I stay longer in Sodapress, I still can earn at most a 350% from my deposit. So what's the deal for compounding ever? I mean, I'll reach a 5% daily APR, but still 350% of my deposit I will earn. I'm not sure. Do you get the question? Because
I guess, I mean, we'll say when the compounding increases a thing called tracked balance. So it's technically a different thing in the contract, and the compounding, the tracked balance is what is used to calculate assassination as well. So you can technically stay in the pool forever if you compound and keep increasing your tracked balance, but then let your shares continue to accumulate value over time. So that's really the bonus.
Okay. I suppose that answers that correctly. I'm gonna end with this one, which is GS. Are AVAX, and I think he means Ava Labs, supporting us with a Vinium launch in terms of advertising or mentioning about our launch in their official Twitter account?
Well, there's nothing planned with that right now. Obviously, we're going to launch it as like a closed OG beta first anyway. So there's like no real point in them announcing anything right now. But Steve has talked to them. We're actually going to have a meeting with them at some point about it as well.
Mhm.
Which things like that will be discussed when we go to more of like a open launch. But Steve's actually at a AVAX event, or was at an AVAX event for the last week.
Oh,
It's
really?
more of a dev event. I mean, he'll probably whenever he's around, he can mention that or like discuss what he's been doing there. But he's made some great contacts. Talked to a lot of cool projects, a lot of cool people there as well. Met with a lot of cool people. Discussed some interesting things that we're going to be likely doing as well with some other protocols. And basically just making good connections. So like face to face, right there. So we
Yeah,
have
that usually
we have
helps.
good connections. So yeah, it's
We do.
yeah, we
And we
will.
also still have the really good connections now that Steve and Nick made with Trader Joe, and we still have the good
Yeah,
connections
exactly.
that I made with Swapscore, or at least I cemented them.
Yeah.
You made them. So I do think that if we really want to make something big, we could reach out to a couple of our friends there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Awesome. I think that wraps it all up. I do want to give a small shout out because I see that Nick has come on the stage and he has a Sith for his avatar, and I always think that's a good thing. um, aside from that,
What's wrong with the dark side?
nothing at all. And as soon as you speak, they become more. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, that's all of them. All right. Now ending.
It's a pretty good.
I'm sorry. What?
No, it was a pretty good trailer from a while ago from the Star Wars video game that came out.
Yeah, it's from the Knights of the Old Republic, and that is an
Yeah, yeah.
MMORPG that actually was. When I started playing it, it wasn't as cool as I thought it would be, but it was still great trailers. It was actually awesome. So
Yeah, the
check out the
trailers are better
trailers.
than the game. The trailers are much better. I was
Yeah,
like, hey, they should make these as movies and not do the game. They would have made more money.
that would have been better. All right, check out the trailers. Aside from that, LB, do you have any alpha to end our AMA with, or
Hmm.
have you already said all of it?
Yeah, I guess the main thing was sort of like a Vinium the Vinium announcement, but more on that will come this early this week. And
Mhm.
I don't want to give too much away. We'll there's a couple of cool things coming as well on the game side that will kind of take it to. I want to take it to the next level. In other words, I'm gonna make essentially an idle, like an idle game is what it is now, and then also tie in a more active game with it, which would be something cool. So yeah, stay tuned.
Right. That wraps it all up then. I wish to thank everyone for attending, and especially thank you, LB and Nick at the end for being there. And of course, Rainbow for always dutifully, recording this AMA so that other people can listen to it later. And it's Sam, I think, that makes the wrap up, or the man. I can't find my words right now, but the shorter version. So thank you all for being here, for being an amazing community, and Yeah, see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.